What's up guys, my name is Tim and my job is to fix BMWs. I've been doing that for more than a decade now. So in today's video we have this 328 project. This is E93 2008 car and I'm gonna be doing the oil pan gasket. So strap in for a longer video because this is a serious repair. And if you want to know more about this project, I'll link the video somewhere here how it started. So without further ado, let's get to it. So as you can see guys, there is some stuff is taken apart already. If you wanted to see why, I'll link the video once again somewhere on the screen. But basically it's all miscellaneous stuff. So there's just a cover here, plastic, this plastic cover, and that's it. So everything else I'll show you what to remove, how to remove it, and we'll proceed with the repair. Of course, this is how the video is gonna go. I'll show you the list of tools, I'll show you the spots where the oil pan is leaking and how to spot it, and of course the DIY itself, the most difficult spots and hard to access bolts and how to remove them, what kind of tools exactly, extensions to use, what I use, and how to install everything back so nothing leaks anymore. And of course I'll go over the list of parts, but that's a small part. I want to remind you guys that the membership program is on, so if you have a problem with your car, you can ask me directly. So what it means is for $5 you get the priority reply to comments, and I will go into detail as much as I can through the comment section to reply to you, and I will prioritize you over everybody else who's not a member. And for $10 a month, you'll get one-on-one time with me if you have a problem with your car, so I can guide you through the process of finding the issue and possibly fixing the issue. So become a member, or if you just want to support, just please do that. Thank you. Before you guys ask, I know you always do, people in the comments, the jack that I use is a Ranger Quick Jack 5000. This one is ran by 12 volts. I don't think they do this anymore. I mean, the pump is ran by 12 volts, so you can. I bought this one specifically for my reasons because I'm doing a mobile repair. I need this to be accessible in any location, so that's why I have 12 volts. They do now just a regular one that you plug into your wall socket. So this is a great jack. I love it. This the reasons why: it's safety first. This is a very safe jack, but I've done this job plenty of times using just regular jack stands and not even lifting the whole car, so just lifting the front long enough. So either or, you can do both. So here's the list of tools you need. First thing first, guys, I want your car to be cold, not ran at all. It's a completely cold car. And first thing we gotta do is drain the oil and remove the oil filter. So drain as much as you can. While we're gonna be doing other processes, the oil will be draining. If you don't know how to drain the oil, well, first recommendation is don't do this job. Don't try to attempt this job. The second recommendation, there's a video linked somewhere on the screen, how to do an oil change on the E90 platform. Let's begin. So in order to get access to everything, I'll start with those Torx 20 bolts to remove this air duct. Then we move to the air filter box. Those are two 10mm bolts right here. And now we continue to mass airflow sensor connector just to unplug it. And there's a clamp right there for the air intake boot. So this is out. I will also remove those 10mm nuts right here in order to move the reservoir, power steering reservoir, out of the way later on. And of course disconnect this vacuum line for the brake booster vacuum line from here and there. This is I'll show you how to do this one. Just push and unplug. So now, since all of those things are removed, we have access to both motor mounts right there on each side. It's also a good idea to replace the motor mounts at the same time if you're doing the oil pan gasket, of course. Unfortunately, I didn't have those in stock, so not going to be doing those today, even I wanted to. So let me show you where the motor mounts are. Those are 16mm nuts. So here's the driver's side motor mount and a single 16mm nut right here. It can be easily accessed from the top, or actually from the bottom as well. So either or, you can do it both ways. That's the driver's side or left side. So this is a passenger side motor mount as well, 16mm nut. The access point is right above the secondary air injection valve, if it's N51, which I have, or just in the middle of the valve cover. So it's easily accessible. You just need a couple extensions and to remove this passenger side motor mount nut. First, let's start with the driver's side mount. Once you loosen it, should be easy from there. Yep, there we go. Well, let's go to the other side. There we go. So for both sides, driver and passenger side, I used the two 12-inch extension. There we go. Just like that. So two 12-inch extensions wobbling like this, that's important. I don't know how they called, but there's plenty of them. Like those are from Harbor Freight basically. So it doesn't have the straight end. So this allows it to wobble a little bit, and the socket. So this very helpful. I only use those. I don't use flat extensions like the solid ones. So now both motor mount bolts are removed. What's it for? It's actually for me to install the engine support bar right here, and it's actually using the factory spot for the tow hook right here, right next to the oil filter housing. We installed the factory tow hook right here. That's what this thread is for. So I'll install the tow hook, and then I will support the engine from the top, just hanging it. So in order for me to remove the subframe, but not fully remove, just enough. Guys, important note, since this is E93, which is convertible, that's the only one of E90 family that will have those reinforcement bars in the front. So it held by 16mm bolt on top, then the nut right here in the middle, and at the bottom, when they're crossing those cross members, they are held by 16mm bolt again. So all I need to do is loosen those two. I don't need to fully remove them or remove the bars, but I need them to be loose in order for me to drop the subframe. So on this side, everything is clear. On the other side, you'll need to remove the secondary air injection pump that is held by two 10mm nuts, and the other part of it is 10mm nut again. So let's do that. So for secondary air injections, here's the first 10mm nut. That's kind of auxiliary hose. Auxiliary, squeeze and release, remove. And this exposes us to 10mm right here and over there. So remove those. I'll get my magnet. And now squeeze this hose and release. Now the pump is free, just need to unplug it. There we go. This is not absolutely necessary, but it frees up some space and it's easier to work on. So those two bolts right here, loosen them too. Underneath, of course guys, you can see I already removed one of the splash shields, which I had to clean up. You can see that in the previous video. So there's two 8mm bolts right here to remove the final shield in the front. Nothing else holds it, so you just have to kind of pop it off. It's sort of, the end is on clips, and remove it. There we go. This exposes us, well, actually, something I noticed just now, it's supposed to be the metal kind of arms. On E93, we have it right here, those metal arms, sort of, that hold the part of the splash shield. So all of you guys having E90, 91, 92 will have it. I don't. Next thing, we have two 13mm bolts right here to like kind of remove this bracket and expose us to the final 16mm bolts for reinforcement bars. Oh, actually those are 16s as well. And here's the last bolt, right here. Let's see if it's tight or not. It is tight. So this all gives us freedom to move the subframe out of the way. Those bars are usually not in the way of things at all, so I'll keep them here for now. If they become trouble, it's easy to remove them now. Now I'm just going to remove the second shield that covers the transmission and be done with it to have clear access. Once again, fellas, on E93 we have all of those reinforcements, so those bars won't be present on the coupes, wagon, or sedans. So this makes this repair more complicated than any other E90. If you're interested in oil pan gasket replacement on 335, I'll have the video in the description or somewhere on the screen right now. So in order to remove those bars, we have 4 bolts. Those are 18mm. So here, over there, they're all clear and open except the one all the way in the back. So I might need to lower the car down, but I think I have a window out there to just take the bolt out, then take all of them out and remove them entirely. I anticipated this bolt being there, so I positioned the quick jack the way so I have the window here. Correction, those middle bolts are 16mm and the outside bolts are 18s. So now the bars are completely loose. Be careful. Mine are very dirty. I just slide them out front. So this is one. This bar appears to be caught between the jack pad and the car, basically. So since this car doesn't have the front jack points pads, I have to put it in the kind of same position, but I think I just put it a little bit over, so I kind of jacked this one. So I'll have to lower the car, take the bar out, and lift the car again. Second bar is out. All it was is a little jam, so lowered, took them out. Important note, so I'm using this Harbor Freight engine support bar. Those things break, so I'm gonna wire the chain through here as a secondary support, and I'll have the 3rd degree support at the bottom, actually, control arms, and then the 4th maybe the jack actually holding it somewhere in there. So the important part, safety first. You don't want the engine falling on you. That's a no-go. Please be safe. This is very dangerous job. If done improperly, can cause devastating injuries. So safety first. Remember that. What we need to do is just to provide a little bit extra security, so if anything happens, the chain will catch it. So that's just to put the bolt here with the nut. Then to put it fully on. So this is extra, just in case, which probably not gonna happen, but better safe than sorry. One more important thing, fellas. If you have your hood struts failing and you have this sticking out and there's a possibility of the hood falling onto it, ask me how I know. There's going to be a big dent right there. So prevent it from happening. First of all, you can install any sort of the stick to hold the hood in place. We're pretty much done under the hood, so everything else is going to be happening under the car. So you can lower the hood to start with and put it on some sort of support in here. It's better this way, trust me. Now let's get to the fun part. We gotta remove, sort of remove, the subframe. So this big thing where engine rests. We have 6 18mm bolts holding it to the car frame. 2 on each, like, I mean, they're mirroring. So which one's gonna be easier for you to see? One right here, one in the middle, usually the long one. They might be all the same size actually. And other one right here in the front. So 3 and 3. First of all, I'm gonna loosen them, and then I'm gonna be using the jack actually. So I'll support it in the middle, and only then I fully remove all of the bolts, and only then I will lower the subframe. We don't need to remove the control arms. The control arms is actually an extra safety layer for me. So the subframe will lower enough for me to remove the oil pan. But if something fails, let's say the engine support fails and the engine drops, the control arms will catch it and it's gonna be no problem at all. Ask me how I know. So yeah, we'll partially remove the subframe and just lower it. It's gonna create enough room to remove the oil pan. As let's get to oil pan inspection. Basically, obvious leak. So here's the back of the oil pan, and as you can see, there's excessive amount of oil right here. This is the usual spot where it leaks. I will also have the O-ring for the oil level sensor, so I will replace that as well. And of course we'll clean up everything. As I can see, it's been happening for a while, but I think the car has not been driven while the oil pan has been leaking, because there's just not enough oil flying towards. Like if it would be happening for a while, basically the whole transmission would be covered in oil, because you move forward, all of the oil that leaks out is just travels towards the back of the car. So since I don't have this here, I would say it's probably just started leaking maybe a few months back, and the car haven't been driven that much since it did start. Losing it first. They're not too tight, but you'll need a breaker bar for that. What we can do is, since everything's loose, I'll leave the center bolts of the subframe on and remove the other 4 corner bolts completely. Now let's put the jack in place. So the jack is in place. Now I can remove remaining 2 other bolts. As I said, all the bolts are different size. So this is the rear, this is the middle, and this is the front. So all of them are different size. You can't really mess them up. Now I'm ready to lower the subframe using the jack. Important note once again about the safety. Yes, again, if you work alone, it's the best, because you can't be at 2 spots at the same time. So when you're lowering the subframe, you can't be under the car. So it's better if you work with a helper or partner. Just make sure you're not under the car while something else happening on top. It's not gonna go much, and it's not that heavy. You can actually hold it by hands, but it's better to use it this way. You'll need the jack in the end anyways to put the subframe back in place. So that's all it is. I can lower it a little bit more, but for now it'll do. Okay, first thing first, remove the wiring. So, here's the wire for oil level sensor. If you want, you can put your jack right here under transmission. This is a GM transmission, so it has the metal oil pan, but use the wooden brick. If you have the ZF transmission, which is plastic oil pan, that might be dangerous, so I don't recommend doing that. If you have the ZF transmission, you still have this room in here. You'll put your jack in here to support the engine and transmission group, basically from falling down, because as you can see, it's movable. Don't be scared though. We got this subframe to catch it if necessary. So wires off. Oxygen sensors, and it's held by two 10mm, E10 bolts right here, and the other E10 is right on top, so it's right there. You'll need it because it's holding the oil pan. Let's start with those. Easily accessible, nothing is hard about those. So the wire bracket is out. The next E10 bolt is right here. It's right above those transmission lines. In order to get to it, I'll go with a bunch of extensions. So I have two 12-inch and one 6-inch extension, and the E10 at the end. So I'll start from here. I'll route it to the bolt, guide it right about here. Yep, there we go. Now it's on, and now I can remove it. It looks hard, but it's actually not really. As long as you have those extensions, like, you're gonna be just fine. Just gotta come from afar. Yep, there we go. And this bolt is out. That's it. So those three 10s are going this way towards the engine. They're holding oil pan to the transmission bell housing. Next stop, I'm going to remove the motor mount completely. Those are two E12 bolts right here holding the motor mount to the subframe. Those are pretty simple and straightforward, not tight at all, pretty much. We'll need that in order to access some bolts, which I will show you how to do. So let's get this out. I don't need to touch the other side, so this is only left side, driver's side. And the motor mount now can be fully removed. As I can see, it's not in bad shape actually at all. Usually, well, you could say it's collapsed, but not to the point of no return. I'll replace them if necessary later on. Next step, I need to remove those 10mm nuts right here. Those are holding the transmission lines to the oil pan. It's in two locations, so this is the first one. Pretty much right behind the motor mount. So I'll get this out. It's important because once you remove all the bolts and those are left, it kind of makes it harder to remove them. So let's get this one out and move to the next one. So the next location is right here, as you can see. We'll loosen that nut, and now the transmission lines are free. Now basically the second nut, it's right around the sway bar bushings. So that's the second nut. Now the transmission lines are free. We can remove the 10mm bolts. They will probably just fall off. Now guys, there is plenty of bolts, the oil pan bolts, that are very visible and very easily accessible. So I'll just remove those first, and then I'll show you the hard to get ones and how to get to them. I will be primarily using the 12-inch extension and the E12 socket. So we start with the back ones right here. They are all different lengths, but none of them are super tight. So I'll start with those bolts and just work my way around it. The hard to access bolts would be on this side. That's why I needed to remove the motor mount. So I'll show you how to get to them and what extensions to use. And there's some other in the front of the engine, but that's pretty much it. From this point on, it's just the bolt removal, and then the hardest part would be removal of the actual oil pan. So I'll come back to you when I'm going to be showing you the hard to remove bolts. So first hard to reach bolt would be on top in the front. I'm going to be using the 6-inch extension. That's all it takes. It's just a little bit weird right here to access it from this point. So we need a shorter extension. And just I'll put the extension first. There we go. And now there it goes. And what I did to this point, I'm just loosened everything else like other bolts, and I'm moving slowly. But when it comes to hard to remove bolts, I would say just take them fully out so you don't have to struggle again, sort of thing. Expect a lot of dirt and stuff to fall into your face. Also, once you start losing the bolts, of course, not all the oil has been drained, like you can't drain it fully out, so there's some oil gonna be coming out. This is a messy job to begin with, but just have your expectations. All right, this bolt is out. There we go. Next sort of hard to reach bolt would be close to the previous one, so it's the next in line. I'm going to be using the same extension, so I'll first find the bolt. Remember, you can move the lines now easily, and now I'm going to be using the other extension. It's 12-inch, and it allows me to take it out. Next bolts are, in my opinion, those are sort of the hardest one because they are covered by the transmission lines. Even though the transmission lines at this point can be moved, it's not hard, but it's just annoying to take them out because you constantly have to hold the transmission line and remove the bolt at the same time. So the best practice that I found would be using this 3-inch extension and a small ratchet, just like that. So this combination is, in my opinion, is the best. It's also worth to say that those 3 bolts, it's a line of bolts, they can be accessed from the top, whichever works best for you. But since we have our bar in there, it's kind of on the way. But it is possible to access those from the top. Nothing is stopping you doing that. So I'll remove those and we'll get back to the last set of hard to reach bolts that are in the end of the oil pan. So this is what it takes, guys. I'm trying to show you the way I position my hands, my body in general, so you have an idea how to deal with those bolts, where to access, where to put your hands. That's the third one, so this is almost done. and we continue with the next set. Next in line. So we'll need I'm gonna use the 3-inch extension and 12-inch extension with the E12 in the end. I'm gonna be using this hole right here, or this one, either or will do. With the motor mount removed, we'll just route it through. You won't see what I'm doing on top, but you'll have an idea when you do it yourself. So that's one of the hard bolts. The reason being, it's also covered by the transmission lines. So we'll have to move the lines out of the way and at the same time put the socket over the bolt. So let's remove that. I kind of have to go by just feeling it at this point because it is hard for me to see as well. Let me see. Yeah. Almost got it. Almost there. So now it's on. I'm gonna use also additional 6-inch just so I have more play in there. Let me see. This one is one of the most uncomfortable bolts because as of this moment the transmission line is pushing against the socket. Installing it is fun as well, but it's doable. So yeah, this one is almost out. Next one is simpler. Next one is going to be accessed through the next hole right here. Pretty much using the same extensions. This one is out. I'll use the same setup for the next bolt. There we go. This flexibility. Nothing else is on the way of this bolt, so this is easy, I'd say. And the other two right here, they're clearly visible and accessible. So now I'll remove all the rest of the bolts and we'll proceed with the removal of the oil pan. Now all the bolts of the oil pan are out. I will raise the engine as much as I can. So I'll just adjust it a little here. And now, yep. I can probably raise it more. I'll need the hook go inside, but basically the clearance is right there in the back, so I think this will be enough. We have good enough clearance right there. So let's get underneath and remove the oil pan. Even though all the bolts are out, the oil pan is still kind of stuck in there. Most likely, that's going to be most likely a case. So there is this gap here, and I'm going to just use the screwdriver. Just pop it off. And there we go. Expect the oil to come out. This is natural. It's all fine. That's why I have this shop towels in place. I will also bring over this guy right here. Yep. Now we have it. So now I move it. As we can see, the oil pan is movable. First thing first, we gotta move the transmission lines out of the way so the oil pan can be moved out of there. All right. There's a few manipulations that have to be made in order to get this oil pan out. It will seem like it's immovable. There's a few lines. The transmission lines are on the way in the front and alongside the oil pan, so we kind of have to use a little bit of force, not much, just a little bit. Some power steering lines are on the way. There we go, we got some movement in the front, and now we got some movement in the back. Now, this is a messy job. What I'm gonna do, I have to move the subframe forward and remove the oil pan. As you can see, I just slided it out of the bell housing. I'll remove the gasket while I can, because in the front the oil pan is caught by the oil pump. So at the same time, I will have to work in the front right here to route the oil pan around the oil pump, and removing the gasket, that kind of helps. You can hear how brittle it is. When you can hear a gasket, that means it's definitely not good. So we are almost there. All right, I'm just hitting the front a little bit on the power steering rack and pinion, basically. I'll lift the engine a little bit and it will give me just enough room. That's it. Now I'll readjust the chain for the new height. You know, just in case. And let's get underneath. Look at that, fellas, that's very important. The seal is out. Look what we have in here in the suction pump of the oil pump. Does this look like a belt to you? Oh my. This is what happens when the belt gets sucked in to the oil pan through the front crankshaft seal. I'll have to remove it, the suction part, and clean it up. More pieces of belt right here on the oil pump chain. Dangerous stuff. I'd say I got lucky. So I drove this car for about 40 miles without any oil pressure issues. Oil pickup line will be disconnected. It's a couple E10 bolts. Other than that, everything looks fine. So I can find more pieces of the belt inside the oil pan. Drain it fully of oil. So what I'm gonna do now is clean it all up using pretty much just shop towels and a little bit of carb cleaner, but that's it. If you have access to power wash, you can power wash it, but don't forget to remove the sensor. I will remove it to replace the O-ring in there anyways, but like, yeah, clean it all up, make it look good. So guys, here's what we have inside the oil pickup line. There's a filtering element on the other end, but one thing that surprised me, my God, look at that. We do have, what that tells me, there is a broken bolt somewhere inside the engine. It can be, as we saw before, the head bolt that I already installed, but it was outside the car. So this one might be another head bolt, which is possible. I think it's somewhere around the valve cover. I mean, obviously it's there. I'll have to remove the valve cover in order to find it, most likely. That is seriously messed up. Still surprised how I made it without oil pressure issues, or maybe the oil pressure doesn't work, the sensor. So yeah, you can see there's plenty of shreds of belt in here. Spray some carb cleaner, try to push them out, but there's a metal mesh in the end, so it doesn't get through, but it can easily block oil supply, easily. That's why it's important to keep it clean. And this is how seemingly not really important and inexpensive oil filter housing gasket can cause irreparable damage at some points. Oil filter housing gasket leaks on the belt breaks, belt gets sucked into the oil pan through the front crankshaft seal, blocks the oil supply, you keep driving, starvation of the engine's gone. So here's what approximately half an hour to an hour probably of cleaning with just shop towels and carb cleaner will do. Insides don't matter, but I cleaned it too. So make sure the surface of the oil pan is clear. There might be some spots where the old seal stuck in there, kind of cooked in there, so make sure it's all cleaned up. But looking good. Now I'm going to install the sensor and put the oil pan back in place. This one took some cleaning to do, but if you look inside, it's no longer dirty, no belt shreds in there anymore. Alright guys, a few tips putting it back. First of all, don't forget the wires. The wires can get into the oil pan and it will not move as well as it should. Second thing, you can zip tie the gasket somewhere, but make sure you zip tie it somewhere where it's easily accessible to cut the zip tie so the gasket doesn't fall off. Other than that, just pretty much go reverse and you'll be fine. But remember the wires, of course, and make sure that the seal, I would say it's very possible to sort of damage the seal this way, but I can just be gentle with it. Okay, let's lift the engine just a little bit more. Alright, now we are fully in. So that was the hardest part. Alright fellas, once you have the oil pan in place, it's easy to adjust the seal, and I will install the first bolt. That's your adjuster basically. So first thing first, all the bolts we install are going to be hand tight and not fully in. That's how you make sure the seal stays where it's supposed to be. So everything required to be kind of wobbly in the beginning, and then only then, when all the bolts installed, all of them without any exceptions, only then we can tighten them. Couple at the bottom, couple at the top first, the easy accessible ones, of course. And from there was the regular. Now once you have a couple in place, it will be 99% centered, the seal and the oil pan, everything. So from that point, I'd say I install all the bolts, and I'll think about what to show you if there is any complications. All the bolts are in, hand tight, but they're not fully installed, so the oil pan's still kind of movable. So what are we gonna do? Since I can't really show you how to tighten all of that, I would say there is no particular sequence to it. Like, I don't really have one, but what I usually do is I install the bolts fully, kind of hand tight, so they are sort of fully in but not torqued, and then at this point I will install this 3 E10 bolts from the transmission side, so the oil pan can be still moved a little bit. And remember, the primary function of the oil pan seal would be horizontal, so first we'll tighten all the bolts here and only then 3 transmission bolts on the transmission side. So this is how it will go. I guess if you guys have any questions, comment below in regards of how to properly install the bolts, or if you have problems reaching one of the bolts or something like that, I will try to help you as much as I can. But basically at this point, you're pretty much done. Everything else is reversed. Like, if I remember anything on the way that I want to share, I will definitely do that. I'll meet you at the end. We're almost done, guys. All the bolts are in. Don't forget 2 10mm nuts and bolts that hold the transmission line in place to the oil pan, and of course the motor mount is in. So now we are ready to remarry the subframe and the engine through the motor mounts. Of course, I already lowered the engine a little bit, so now the easiest way to do it is with the jack, of course. The subframe is not that heavy, so you can kind of push it, but it's easier this way because you need to adjust and readjust it sometimes. The whole point is to make sure that the motor mount is matching with the holes. So here's how I do it. Since I always work alone, I just use my leg for the jack while using my hands to properly adjust the subframe. So now I can see both motor mounts reached the holes, and now we have those little fangs from the frame that should meet in the front. So I see it's matching here. I'm just gonna check the other side, and that's pretty much it. So yeah, I can see it's all good here. So let's give it a couple more pumps, and we can see that everything falls in place gracefully. There we go. Now we are able to install the bolts. I'll start with the middle ones. Just kind of get it in there. Let's do the front as well. And the end. So the end bolts, like the last ones, they usually, if they're not fitting right away, which happens, I would say tighten the middle ones, and then those will fall into place perfectly fine. All right, let's see if this one fits. It does. So now I'm gonna completely lower the engine. And let's let it be. That's it. This one's out. So initially I just sort of hand tighten it. Those subframe bolts, you can see they kind of loose. So now I'm just gonna tighten them more. This is not powerful impact, and then I can remove the jack and continue with more torque. The jack is out and subframe is in place. Final and very important step, don't forget to fill up your car. I also installed the new oil filter and 2 new O-rings. And what I saw is one of the O-rings, the top one, the big one, was just fine since the oil change has been done recently. But the bottom one has been there for definitely 30-40,000 miles. It's cracked up, like hasn't been replaced in years, I would tell you that. So yeah, let's fill it up, and don't forget to replace your crush washer on the bottom, the drain plug, of course. Everything else is all together. I left the shields off the car, so well, first of all, I can see and check if there is any leak of sorts, but also because I want to clean everything, the top, the bottom, everything, and keep the car very clean. There we go. At this point, the engine is sort of completely drained, so the oil capacity for this motor is 6.9 quarts. We can do 7, that's fine. And now it's time to fire it up after major surgery. So this is it, guys. I hope this video was helpful. This is a very long and dirty repair, so prepare yourself for that. And of course, if you made it this far, thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. Subscribe, drop a like, share the video. I hope it will help you to save thousands of dollars, because that's what the dealer usually charges. So stick around, there is more to come, and I'll see you in the next one.